A deafening bang echoed through the air, followed by a haunting silence that swallowed the screams of terror. I crouched behind a desk, clutching my phone, heart racing, praying for this nightmare to end. The distant sound of footsteps drew closer, sending chills down my spine as I wondered if the figure lurking in the shadows even knew my name. This all began on the evening of December 14th, 2029, at Oak Ridge University, a serene campus nestled in the sleepy town of Willow Creek. Known for its picturesque landscapes and historic buildings, the university attracted students with promises of academic excellence and a peaceful education experience. But that night, the peaceful facade was about to shatter, revealing secrets darker than anyone had imagined. As the semester was winding down, students were cramming for final exams in various rooms. Room 2114, a large lecture hall, was particularly full that evening as students gathered for an economics review, led by their charismatic professor, Dr. Sarah Collins. Dr. Collins was known for her engaging lectures, making even the most tedious topics come alive, and students loved her for it. Little did they know, someone outside felt a dark resentment toward that very room, building a twisted plan. Just as the review session was about to end, the door to the lecture hall burst open. A figure cloaked in darkness, face obscured by a mask, stepped inside. The raw fear that gripped the room was palpable as students froze in place, clutching their belongings like shields against the impending doom. The man, armed with a firearm, began shouting incoherently, amplifying the chaos as he pulled the trigger relentlessly. The gunman's rage unleashed hell upon the unsuspecting students, and screams filled the air as they scrambled for safety. The sound of shattering glass and ricocheting bullets overwhelmed the cries of terror. In mere moments, the room that once fostered learning transformed into a hellscape of blood and despair. I dared to peek from my hiding spot, only to witness the horror unfold, a nightmare I never thought would invade the tranquility of Oak Ridge. The aftermath was a cacophony of sirens and frantic voices as police arrived at the scene to an unimaginable sight. Reports flooded in, and the authorities scrambled to assess the chaos in room 214. Officers dispatched swiftly to secure the area approached the building cautiously, their hearts pounding with dread. Inside, the echoes of gunfire began to fade, replaced by the sobering reality of the situation. 2 students had lost their lives that evening, and several others lay injured. As the investigation commenced, detectives combed through the evidence left behind, piecing together the fragments of the horrific event. Witnesses painted a chilling portrait of a man who had lingered on the fringes of the students' lives, someone they had dismissed as harmless, yet his obsession had grown dangerously deep. Among the evidence found were disturbing notes scrawled with anger, aimed towards Dr. Collins, revealing a past drenched in obsessive hatred. The days that followed were filled with fear and confusion as the community grappled with the tragedy. Friends and family of the deceased mourned, their grief punctuated by a profound sense of anger directed at the shooter. Rumors began to circulate about the gunman's identity, with whispers of an expelled student who had harbored grievances against the university. The once idyllic campus was now shrouded in suspicion, and students began to question their safety. Detectives learned of a chilling incident reported 3 weeks prior. An unidentified man had been seen lurking near the university library, taking photographs of students. This unsettling revelation sparked a renewed search, but this time they were armed with a name. Kyle Thompson, a former student notorious for his erratic behavior, had vanished after the shooting, leaving a trail of fear in his wake. The investigators knew they had to find him, and fast. As the investigation deepened, authorities uncovered Kyle's online presence, messages steeped in bitterness and rage directed at the university and Dr. Collins. He had expressed a desire for revenge, his obsession spiraling out of control. With every new piece of evidence, it became undeniable that Kyle had meticulously planned the horrific attack. But where had he gone? The community held its breath as the police pursued every lead. Weeks passed, but Kyle remained elusive. The files compiled by investigators painted a disturbing picture of a man who had once been a promising student, now corrupted by hatred and paranoia. His obsession with a dark fantasy had led him down a path filled with unimaginable violence. The chilling question lingered. Had he simply vanished, or was he watching from the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike again? It wasn't until an unassuming phone call from a local diner, nearly 6 weeks later, that the police received their first solid lead. The waitress remembered a man who had been sitting alone in a corner booth, overhearing him speak quietly about the day of reckoning. The description matched Kyle perfectly, leading officers to believe he was hiding in plain sight. Investigators rushed to the diner, but by the time they arrived, he had vanished once again. Months passed, and the air filled with unanswered questions. The haunting presence of fear permeated through the campus. Families grieved while the university struggled to regain a sense of safety. Dr. Collins, now a ghost of her former self, continued to reflect upon the day that changed her life forever. The community had scars that no amount of time could heal, but hope began to seep through. Was Kyle really out there, or had he found another dark outlet for his twisted mind? In the end, as the investigation faded from headlines, the chilling memory of that night and the shadow of Kyle Thompson loomed large. Authorities closed the case, believing him dead or hidden away. But the unsettling truth was that they never found his body. Students reported sightings of him around the campus for years to come, and even now, whispers float through the halls of Oak Ridge University. Could he still be watching? Or perhaps he was waiting for the next opportunity to embrace the darkness once again. The last voice we heard was filled with sheer disbelief, a final echo of terror as the screen plunged into darkness. I couldn't move, paralyzed by a deep sense of dread, as I realized the broadcast had ceased abruptly. The local news had been covering the shocking series of disappearances in Galloway Creek for weeks, but this was different. Something unspeakable had crossed the line into the realm of the unimaginable. On the chilly evening of November 7th, 2021, Galloway Creek, a quaint town known for its picturesque landscapes and family-friendly atmosphere, came alive with preparations for the annual Harvest Festival. Residents adorned their homes with pumpkin displays and twinkling lights, blissfully unaware of the sinister undercurrents lurking just beneath the surface. For most, it was a time of celebration, but for a select few, it signaled the end of everything normal. That evening, the town square buzzed with laughter as families gathered to enjoy festivities. Lucy Johnson, a spirited 16-year-old with dreams of becoming a journalist, was excited to cover the popular event for her school newspaper. She snapped photos of smiling children, couples dancing, and the vibrant fireworks illuminating the sky, oblivious to the dark presence that had already begun to cast its shadow. As the night wore on, however, something sinister began to unfold. Just past midnight, the jovial atmosphere took a dark turn when Sheriff Mark Davis received a frantic call. A local teenager had gone missing just outside the festival grounds. Lucy was one of the last to see him, but she soon found herself at the center of the investigation. The heart-pounding panic echoed through the town as people began to realize that their beloved Harvest Festival was now tainted with fear and uncertainty. As the sheriff's department began their search, dread seeped into every crevice of Galloway Creek. This wasn't the first disappearance. 3 other teenagers had gone missing in the weeks leading up to the festival, each case more baffling than the last. The trend struck fear into the hearts of parents, marking a grim foreboding over what was supposed to be a festive occasion, and the clock was ticking. The investigation kicked off with intense scrutiny. Lucy, driven by her journalistic instincts, began to dig deeper into the cases of the missing teens. She scoured social media, piecing together information about their last known whereabouts. Friends described an unsettling atmosphere in the days before the disappearances, shadows in the woods, strange noises at night, and a foreboding feeling that something was stalking them. As days turned into weeks, Lucy's quest for answers spiraled into a rabbit hole of unsettling discoveries. Reports of strange sightings of a shadowy figure lurking near the woods began circulating, aligning eerily with the times of the disappearances. Alarm bells rang louder, as Lucy learned that the last phone calls made by the missing teens had been to a mysterious number that no one could trace. The walls of Galloway Creek were closing in, and time seemed to be slipping away. In a desperate search for clarity, Sheriff Davis organized town hall meetings urging residents to remain vigilant. However, the fear that had gripped the town only grew stronger, breeding distrust among neighbors. The Harvest Festival, once a gathering of joy, became a ghost town, haunted by unanswered questions and a creeping anxiety that no one could shake. Lucy decided to confront the darkness head-on, determined to find the connection between the disappearances. On a cold night in early December, something horrific occurred. Lucy met with a friend who had spotted a strange figure in the woods. As they approached the suspected area, a scream echoed through the trees, a sound that would haunt the community forever. What Lucy and her friend found was not just an empty space. They stumbled upon remnants of the previous teens, items discarded, a chilling reminder of what had been lost to the unknown. The realization that they had unearthed something so deeply unsettling left Lucy paralyzed with fear. She reached for her phone to call for help, but before she could dial, the ground shifted and an unseen force seemed to close in on them. Panic set in as they heard rapid footsteps approaching. They turned to flee, but not before Lucy glanced back and saw a glimpse of the dark figure watching from the shadows, a grin spreading across its face. The police launched a renewed investigation after Lucy's horrifying discovery. Despite their intensified efforts, the search yielded little more than unanswered questions. The community, still reeling from fear and confusion, clung to the hope that the missing teens would soon return. But as the days slipped by, the truth settled like a heavy weight on the town's consciousness. Some things are never meant to be found. As I scoured the records, I found something chilling. A local librarian had once mentioned a series of unexplained events tied to the woods, tales of shadows that preyed on the innocent. Appalled, I realized the town had buried its past, a history that had repeated itself, hidden behind facade after facade. Perhaps the disappearances were not random. Perhaps they were a manifestation of something the townsfolk had long suppressed. One fateful night, as Lucy revisited the site of hope and terror, she spotted a figure in the distance, a shadow flitting between the trees. Heart racing, she reported it to the sheriff's office, but as they rushed to the scene, the figure vanished without a trace. The chilling realization plagued her. What if the darkness they were battling was not just an individual, but a part of the very town itself? Had they awakened something ancient and malevolent? As days turned into weeks, the strands of the narrative began to unravel. Lucy's articles, now infused with a sense of foreboding, ignited a fire of suspicion within the townspeople. Conversations turned to rumors, and whispers of an ancient curse began to surface. The community had no choice but to confront the horrors buried beneath the surface of their seemingly quaint existence. But would they find the strength to face their demons before it was too late? With every passing day, the unsettling murmurs of the past grew louder, reverberating through Galloway Creek. The missing teens became a ghostly chorus, haunting the very fabric of a community that had once thrived on joy and togetherness. As Lucy continued to investigate, she uncovered a chilling family secret that tied back to the origins of the town, an ancestral darkness that beckoned with each new disappearance. The fear that gripped Galloway Creek never truly subsided, lingering like a dark shadow in every corner. Each new year brought with it a sense of lost hope and unanswered questions, as the unbroken cycle continued. As rumors persisted of sightings and unexplained occurrences, Lucy Johnson became a name spoken in hushed tones, the girl who dared to confront the darkness and delve into the tragic history that intertwined with the fate of their town. What truly happened to the missing teen, and would their stories ever be uncovered from the shadows? The echo of laughter faded as the screams erupted, a cacophony of horror shattering the stillness that enveloped Maplewood Lane. I stood frozen at the edge of the street, my heart pounding in my chest, horrified by the scene playing out before my eyes. The faint glimmer of a silver blade caught the glint of streetlights as the figure moved gracefully through the chaos. What I couldn't understand was how this had suddenly become a neighborhood nightmare. The night was October 31, 2022, a Halloween that began like any other in the charming neighborhood of Maplewood Lane. Families decorated their homes with ghosts and goblins. Children buzzed with excitement, and the scent of candy wafted through the crisp autumn air. I had grown up in this neighborhood, where every Halloween brought a sense of community spirit. Little did I know this year's celebration would become a living nightmare. As the sun dipped below the horizon, children dashed from house to house, laughter bubbling in the warm air. I took my son Evan with me, eager to relive the magic of Halloween through his eyes. We roamed the streets, collecting candy and sharing stories, blissfully unaware of the sinister shadow that lurked nearby. What had begun as an innocent evening transformed abruptly when I noticed a figure watching us from the edge of a darkened street. A chilling shiver ran down my spine. An uneasy feeling settled in as the figure stepped further into the light. A man wearing a haunting mask with a menacing smile that seemed all too real. Safe within the confines of our neighborhood, I brushed it off as an elaborate costume. Yet when the laughter of children turned to screams, I could no longer dismiss it. Panic set in when I heard the words, "Get away," tear through the air like a chilling wind. The night had taken a dark turn. As I rushed to gather Evan and lead him back home, the chaos erupted around us. I turned to see the figure darting from house to house, brandishing a knife. The world around me blurred into panic. Parents were shouting and dragging their children indoors as the haunting laughter echoed through the streets. I could see adults scrambling to barricade their doors, but as I glanced back, the masked figure was only a few feet away, his chilling gaze fixated on me. The night quickly escalated into chaos as calls flooded the police department. In the following minutes, sirens wailed down Maplewood Lane, lighting up the faces of the terrified residents. But by then, the masked figure had vanished into the night, leaving behind a path of fear. The local law enforcement arrived, but despite their best efforts to piece together the events, they were met with nothing but whispers and shadows. In the aftermath, the community banded together, sharing tales of their harrowing encounters. Some reported strange sightings in the days leading up to Halloween, an odd figure lingering too long on porches, a shadow darting between the trees at twilight. The police scoured the area but could not find a trace of the figure. Months passed, and the residents of Maplewood Lane found themselves looking over their shoulders, remnants of fear creeping into everyday life. As winter approached, the fear morphed into something darker. Reports of flickering lights, strange noises at night, and even sightings of the masked figure began to surface again. It felt as if the neighborhood had awakened something ancient, an entity that thrived on chaos. I decided to take matters into my own hands. driven by a desire to protect my family and uncover the truth behind the figure that haunted our streets. I started my investigation, interviewing neighbors and digging through local archives. After weeks of research, I stumbled upon the story of a man named Charles Merritt, who had once lived in the very house that had become the heart of our neighborhood. The mystery deepening as I uncovered accusations of violent outbursts and erratic behavior, leading to his disappearance years prior. The connections were disturbing. Had he returned to exact revenge on the community that turned him away? The more I dug, the more I unearthed stories of a cycle of violence and fear surrounding Maplewood Lane, whispers of the masked man that had become a local legend. But the most chilling detail was yet to come. Newspaper accounts hinted at an annual Halloween tradition designed to keep the spirit of Charles at bay. As Halloween approached once again, I felt a knot of dread tighten in my stomach. What if we had unwittingly severed the bonds that held him in the past? As Halloween drew nearer, the masked figure returned, sightings increasing as fear began to grip the neighborhood anew. Each encounter seemed more brazen than the last, with reports of the figure lurking in the shadows, watching the children who dared to trick or treat. I convened a meeting with my neighbors, urging them to remain vigilant, but also to consider the dark history that lay beneath our feet. I could feel the energy in the room shift, a growing tension surrounding our shared fear. On the fateful evening of October 31st, as I barricaded my door and prepared to watch over Evan, the lights flickered once again. Each pop of darkness felt like a portent of doom, the atmosphere crackling with energy. I could sense the masked figure watching from afar, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash the chaos we had feared. As the night wore on, I heard the sound of laughter accompanied by screams. Our neighborhood had become a stage for the darkness to spiral out of control. The police were summoned again, but when they arrived, the scene was eerily quiet. The masked figure had disappeared once more, leaving only the echoes of laughter and shouts in the night air. This time, I couldn't help but wonder if the figure was more than just a man. Whether it was a manifestation of our collective fears or something deeper that had awakened, I felt we had only begun to scratch the surface of the horror that had seeped into our lives. With the days and months that followed, the saga of the masked figure persisted in the minds of the residents of Maplewood Lane. The fear lingered like a fog, and I began to question if the masked figure would ever truly leave, or had he become a part of the very fabric of our neighborhood, an eternal reminder that darkness can arise, especially when we least